Hi people, it's me, Anja. My pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for a new video. So, currently today, I decided to read this selection for the very first time. I know this book was published in like 2012 or something like that, and I haven't really read, honestly, a lot of the early YA books that were published in the early 2010s, just because in 2010 to like 2014, I was in middle school, and when I was in middle school, I was reading middle grade. And then when I was in high school later on, and I was reading more and more YA books, all of the YA books from the previous 5 years, from 2010 to 2014, were considered like trashy and had like bad reputations. You know what I mean? So I never quite gravitated towards the majority of them. So now I can read the selection with a new mind, you know what I mean? Rather than a 14-year-old mind. So basically, all I know about this book is that I've heard that it might be deeply inspired by the biblical story of Esther. I've heard that it's compared to The Bachelor. I think it's like a YA dystopia romance following a young main character whose name is America Singer, and she's chosen for like this Bachelor competition where she's chosen to like fall in love with the Prince of America or something like that. I don't know if like her name is a reference to the United States on purpose. Like, I don't know if that country still exists in this timeline now, if that makes any sense. I don't know. I don't really love geographical names in general, but I think it's fine if it's set in a futuristic setting where that country like no longer exists, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know if Kiera Cass is referencing a country that still exists or one that doesn't. Anyway, I digress. So basically, this is one of those books where now I feel like it's more like made fun of than like critically acclaimed or anything like that. So basically, I have very low expectations, but here we go. So I've read like 3 chapters so far, and I have a few like clarifying questions just for context. So basically, she lives in a world where there's a caste system, and her caste is right in the middle. She's a 5. But like, if she is chosen by the prince through the selection, if she is selected, then she becomes a 1 because then she will be mailing up. You know what I mean? But what I don't understand is that, first of all, it says that the selection is voluntary. So many people can choose, if they want to, not to go through this, especially since only 35 people, I think, are actually, like, competing for the hand of the prince, but, like, hundreds of girls, like, submit themselves. Does that make any sense? Like, hundreds of girls all submitting their applications for the selection, but like only 35 are chosen. But like the choosing is not random, really. I don't know why specifically they will be chosen from, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I suppose I will find that specifically out later, like why specifically she will be chosen amongst the other ones. Anyway, second of all, I don't really understand how or why the caste system was established. And I don't mean like the real reason why. I need to know like the history behind this world, the propaganda that America thinks and knows. You know what I mean? That is something that I don't quite understand, and I need that to be established and explained. So anyway, that's where I'm at. So America got chosen. Yay! So exciting. Expected, obviously, but exciting nonetheless. Anyway, though, aside from that, let's talk about Aspen. He sucks. He sucks. I don't like him at all. I hope he doesn't appeal again in the next books. I actually don't know if I'm going to continue this series and read the sequels. I think it's a trilogy, but I also think that there's like a novella or something like that. I know there's a book that's like called The One or something like that. Anyway, I also know that like since her name is America, and I'm sure Kiera did this on purpose, but like the colors of the dresses on, like, this book and the sequels all red, white, and blue, like the American flag, obviously. But anyway, back to Aspen. He sucks. I don't like him at all. Not only is his line about, like, I'm a man, I must be a provider, seems, first of all, very 2012, very heteronormative, very much like gender roles, whatever. But also, second of all, the fact that he won't take a risk and, like, have a relationship with America because he's, like, ashamed of his cast, because he doesn't want her to be in the same cast as him. I don't know, it just feels so, like, on the one hand, it's, like, kind of understandable because, like, her life will, like, be worse, I guess, objectively, economically, financially, if they do get married. But second of all, like, it feels so, I don't know, wrong. It feels like he's not actually in love with her the way that she is with him, so it just feels bad. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't like him, and I hope he dies. I'm kidding. I hope I never see him again. So, he's so annoying to me. But, like, from my, like, knowledge surrounding the series, I've known that America and Max are endgame. So, like, when Aspen was introduced, I kind of knew that the relationship would end. But, like, not like that. Anyway, there's that. So I've read 10 chapters now, and my impression of America as a character is that she seems very innocent and very privileged, but unaware of the privileges that she has. Also, I have another question about the caste system. Does it go 1 to 10? And if, like, the 8 are homeless, then, like, what are 9s and 10s? You know what I mean? I'm quite confused. Because, like, the way that she's treated as a 5 makes me think that, like, being a 5 is, like, halfway. If that makes any sense. Also, the world building is very much underdeveloped. Like I mentioned earlier, what is the history of this world? Why was this caste system established? What is the propaganda that America learned in school, although she was homeschooled? So maybe she didn't learn it. Maybe she has no idea. Anyway, America and Maxon have just met. They've had their secret meeting when she had a panic attack out in the garden because she's understandably extremely overwhelmed and obviously crying because she's also, I think, quite lonely. Anyway, as for the other girls in this competition, I like Molly. I think Celeste is very stuck up. I don't know, many of these other characters seem very, I don't know, wooden, one-dimensional, but like it screams 2012, if that makes any sense. Anyway, overall this book seems very heteronormative, very white. Are any of these characters people of color? I don't know yet. Are any of these characters queer? I don't know yet. But anyway, there's that. That's my opinion right now. I think I'm like halfway through this book now. Basically, I would say that this book is suffering from a trope that I hate, which is too much telling and not enough showing. Although I will say that Lucy's backstory is so sad and so awful. Second of all, what are the rebels wanting? Like, what is their goal? What are they rebelling against? And, like, the history, again, behind this world is so incredibly lacking, and I need to know more details, or else, like, the world building now and where the world is now doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. So, first of all, America not knowing to question the truth until it is presented in front of her. She's so real for that. Second of all, Maxim saying that, like, the more somebody is educated, the least likely they are to be a criminal. What? That's so weird. I don't know, that phrasing rubs me the entirely wrong way, and I feel like it's, like, feeding into a stigma about, like, people that we label as criminals. Does that make any sense? I don't really know if it does. But, like, basically, I don't know. I feel like there's so much nuance surrounding why somebody does, like, morally bad things, like, objectively bad actions, and the fact that you're, like, judging someone for their choices and for their actions in this instance feels kind of weird, especially based around, like, how much education they have. That feels awfully, I don't know, classist? I don't know. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but that's just my opinion. I've read like 17 chapters of this book so far, and my impression of Maxon as a character is that he seems so incredibly privileged and sheltered, and also, like, why does no one tell him how to communicate with women? Like, I don't understand this at all. I guess he's an only child. I can't quite remember if he has siblings or anything like that, but the fact that he doesn't really know what to do with all of these crying women or whatever, like, what? Why are you so sheltered? Why do you not know anything about anything? Anyway, I know that America and Maxon are like endgame or whatever, but like, I don't really see their romantic chemistry. I don't even see platonic chemistry. Because again, the writing is so much telling and not enough showing. Show me why I should root for them as a couple. Show me why they will be in love. Show me it. Because I don't see any of it right now at all. And also, like I said, the world building, the politics, the history is very much lacking, but maybe that's the point, because there aren't a lot of history books, and they say, like, history is not something that you should study, it's just something that you should know. But how do you know something automatically if there's no, like, I don't know, evidence or anything to study? Because if you don't study something, you might forget it later on, which I think is the point of the book and the point of why they don't have history books. You know what I mean? Because if everyone's thinking that the history was 5,000 different things rather than being one thing, like, it's not as solid as it could be. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching, but anyway, that's where I'm at. Hi people, so I finished book 1, and now I must know what happens next. So I'm starting book 2. And quite frankly, this romance, this love triangle, I don't give two shits about it. Because first of all, I already know who her endgame is going to be. Second of all, I'm sensing that Molly is gay, and I need her to be gay, okay? I need some characters in this world to be diverse somehow. Third of all, the 6 that are left, some of their names I don't even remember. Elise is apparently from New Asia, which makes me think that she's supposed to be Asian, but like, I don't even remember what she looks like, or how tall she is, or anything. I don't really remember, honestly, any of these other characters, because again, they feel so one-dimensional. Celeste just feels like your typical, like, bitchy person, and then Molly seems nice because she's America's friend, and then who are the other names? I don't remember at all. So anyway, time to start book 2. I'm now like halfway through the Elite. I will say the writing is very digestible in the sense that like I said before, it's relying on telling and not showing, and I keep saying that over and over and over again because it makes the writing more digestible and easier to read. You know what I mean? Because it's just mostly dialogue. Anyway, what happened to Molly and her bodyguard boyfriend is diabolical, and it's awful, and what the fuck? I hope we get to see her again, but like, I don't know. I'm thinking that we won't, since obviously this series is way more romance driven than it is like politics driven or history driven or anything like that. So anyway, as for the romance, the love triangle, I've heard like America being criticized in the past by other readers who being wishy-washy, and I definitely understand that. The thing about a love triangle is that like I enjoy love triangles if the two contenders are like both well-established, distinct characters. But I would say in this book, they're not. Aspen is so annoying to me. Like, in book one, he was such a coward in the beginning, and even though, like, he's apologized for that and everything, I don't really ship her with Maxim, but I ship her with Aspen even less. You know what I mean? But maybe I'm biased because I know who she's gonna end up with, or whatever, but, like, he's so annoying to me. But, like, I'm enjoying their conversations just because he's giving me more insight to, like, the world building, to the lower caste people, and what's been happening there. Whereas Maxon is just giving privileged prince vibes, but, like, in a bad way. You know? Anyway, that's it. So I'm now 60% through book 2 right now. And Molly's back, and I'm so excited for their reunion because Molly seems like such a sweet, nice girl, and I'm so glad that Maxon brought her back. However, Maxon's activism, for lack of a better word, seems rather performative and selective. I don't know. I feel like he has so much power, he has so much privilege, and he could be doing so much more with it. But, like, he whines about, like, how much power he thinks that he doesn't have. And he's, like, trapped in this role of, like, being a prince and, like, no one's listening to him or whatever. And I'm supposed to be sympathetic towards him, but I'm not at all. So, I don't know. Anyway, I'm glad to see Molly again. Hi, people. So, ignore the change in background. Ignore how echoey my voice sounds now. My room is currently occupied, so I had to move someplace else. But anyway, the Queen is such an underdeveloped character. I just learned about the program that she designed when she was younger to help families with their physically and mentally impaired like relatives, which is so interesting because it implies, the paragraph's here, but it implies that like disabled people essentially get thrown out to the streets, which I think is so diabolical and so awful. And like, I wonder if this book is a critique of capitalism without intending to be. I don't know. Anyway, there's that so far. Hi people, so I've finished now book 2 and I'm about to start book 3. My impression of this series this fall is that it's very basic, very rudimentary. Like, I don't know if that's the point of the book, since it's very romance driven. Exactly, so all the politics and the history and everything is kind of in the background, and everything feels so underdeveloped. Like, all of the characters and the plot, the dialogue and the romance, like, everything is so one-dimensional, which feels very annoying, but also makes the book very easy to read because there's not much under the surface. Does that make any sense? It's like the top of the iceberg, but like there should be so much more substance underneath, but there isn't. I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically, if I didn't say this before, I rated the first 2 books in this series 3 stars, and I'm probably going to rate this next one also 3 stars. So there you have it. Hi, so I'm like 4 chapters into the 3rd book in the series, and the girls basically just talked about their status with Maxon. And first of all, I wish that this conversation had happened way earlier in this entire series. And second of all, I think the pacing of this series is rather off. I don't know, people always complain that America is such a wishy-washy character, but frankly, so is everybody else. You know what I mean? At least the writing treats everyone equally. And also, I feel like what happened to Natalie's family, particularly her sister, in the last book, is massively overlooked. Can we talk about that again? Like, I need more details about how these rebels have been impacting them personally. You know, America is like she feels so removed from everything. I wish her relationship with her brother Coda was more intertwined into the story and more like talked about and addressed. There's so many aspects of her personal life that I wish weren't so like brushed under the rug or whatever. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm here for the home stretch. So I've now read 14 chapters of the one, and I liked the scene when she finally left her gilded cage and got a taste of what was happening behind the palace walls, and especially her interaction with Paige. So much of what the lower class or the lower caste people are going through is so much like implied rather than explicitly said, which I wonder if is on purpose due to like America's privileged lens, because even though she is a 5 or a 3 now, I guess technically, she still has like privilege above the other caste lower than her, if that makes any sense. But again, I don't like this writing at all, and I've complained about the writing throughout this entire video, and I won't be stopping. I'm a hater. That's my truth. I'm a hater of Kiera's writing. And by the way, I won't be reading the next 2 books in this quintet just because on Wikipedia it says that the next 2 books are set 20 years after this book. So after I finish this book, I think it's unnecessary to read the other 2. But anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I've read 25 chapters of this book, and America's father is dead, which is very sad, but also came out of nowhere. I feel like her family has not really been present, really, in any of these books. So the fact that her father is now dead and she's now visiting her family and they're all grieving together, it's all very sad and everything. But like her connection to her family is not super, I don't know, deep. Really? I don't know. And the fact that her father is a rebel doesn't necessarily surprise me, honestly. But like, I'm surprised that this entire time Maxon has not figured out that she and Aspen had a romance in the past. You know what I mean? Like, is he that stupid? He probably is. Let's be real here. We all know that I don't like him. I think that he's so naive and so sheltered this entire time. But like, how does he not know? Like, what is going on? I don't understand. Also, speaking of Aspen, I think that America should have broken up with him already. Now, obviously, I'm biased and I know that she's going to marry Maxon. We all know that. But I feel like she needs to be more honest with Aspen and with Maxon and just with both of them together. Like, Maxon keeps saying that she's not being honest with him and it's all been so vague and whatnot, which is true. But like, America herself is so wishy-washy and so is he. No wonder they don't trust each other. Neither would I. Anyway, I'm almost done with this book. Let's go. Hi people, it's been several hours since the last time I talked to you, just because right after I finished the one, I went and I took a nap and then I ate dinner and then I forgot that I hadn't finished this vlog yet. So now here I am finishing it several hours later. So basically the series ends, if you hadn't guessed already, by America and Maxon getting married, which first of all, the love triangle romance ended like, I don't know. It lasted like way too long, and I wish that this book focused more on the politics and the rebels. I don't know. I feel like the pacing and introduction of the rebels in general, like, happened at weird times, and the pacing and everything didn't really fit together quite well. And like I've been saying this entire time, like, the world building is so underdeveloped. And the politics don't really make much sense because it's so underdeveloped. You know what I mean? and there aren't really a lot of like people of color in this book or queer people, and the whole premise itself is incredibly heteronormative. And in the beginning of the book, it's explained that if American Aspen get married, like, she would become his caste, because in the beginning, he's the caste below her, which doesn't really make any sense, because why can't he become her caste? You know what I mean? Like, why can't they, like, marry up? I don't understand that at all. But, anyway, second of all, like I said, this world building is so heteronormative, and it makes no sense, because it's so incredibly underdeveloped, because I don't really understand how the caste system was established, or why it was established, and what the rebels want, and the differences between, like, the North rebels and the South rebels is so weird to me, and it feels odd and almost, like, I don't know, racist to, like, imply that the North rebels are more organized than the South rebels, and the South rebels are more aggressive or something. I don't know. I don't really care at this point either. And also, like, her friend, I enjoy, like, the sisterhood that she finally found in the third book with the last, like, 3 other competitors and whatever, but I just felt like the romance dragged on way too long, and the selection competition itself should have ended in the middle of the second book instead of the end. Like, I'm glad that, like, the whole thing was dissolved altogether, but, like, I feel like America is so indecisive because she is so wishy-washy and she's so privileged, and she doesn't quite, like, acknowledge her privilege as much as I wish that she should have, and she should have been more, I don't know, driven, more action-focused. Like, this girl has no thoughts. The thoughts that she does have sometimes, like, she doesn't do anything about them. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything if you think the government is corrupt. What matters way more is your actions following that. And she was really way more focused on falling for Maxon than about this corrupt government. Does that make any sense? Also, speaking of the stakes and the tension or whatever, I feel like this book is so incredibly low stakes, even though, like, the circumstances imply that there would be higher stakes, considering what is, like, implied, or what I think she's trying to imply. I don't know, maybe I'm giving Kiera way too much credit. So anyway, those are my, like, unorganized thoughts on the one. So in conclusion, I feel like I've said everything that I really needed to say. I don't recommend the Selection trilogy at all. I don't really think it aged well. I think that if you want to read, like, a YA romance fantasy trilogy, I would even recommend the Red Queen series, which I've only read the first 3 books of it, I think. I don't think I actually ever finished that series. But anyway, this series is not good. It did not age well. It's super heteronormative and underdeveloped. And honestly, I don't know if this was really fun to read. I won't remember these books necessarily in the next 6 months or anything like that. And in conclusion, I rated all of them 3 stars. And honestly, I don't really know if this is going to be the first in a new series on my channel where I read some of the early YA books from the early 2010s for the first time and just film my live action reaction to them. You know what I mean? I don't know if that would be fun for you to watch or honestly for me to film, since that's the more important part. But anyway, overall, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the frog emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!